When a load arrives at a SIM site, it should always be inspected to confirm that we can deal with the waste. Every site has a waste management license provided by the Environment Agency that tells us what we can and can't accept. Your site manager will tell you the wastes that we cannot accept. A driver may hand over paperwork stating what the load contains. The weighbridge operator should then visually inspect the load from the weighbridge. Once checked, they'll provide a weighbridge ticket confirming the contents of the load. Some loads may contain waste that the site isn't licensed to accept. For example, this load contains a gas bottle. Other non-conforming wastes to look out for include paint tins with paint still in them, fridges, wood, bricks and concrete, TVs, computer monitors, and heavily contaminated or leaking loads. Some sites may also have a policy of not accepting tyres on end-of-life vehicles, or ELVs. If the load does contain non-conforming waste, the driver should be informed and the load rejected. In some instances, your site manager may take the decision to accept a load and arrange for the non-conforming waste to be dealt with separately, or arrange to have it stored in the quarantine area. The weighbridge should inform relevant site operatives of any non-conforming loads to look out for when waste is being tipped, so that arrangements can be made for transfer to the appropriate storage area on site. As you can see, this lorry is okay and ready to be tipped or offloaded onto the site. If your site does accept hazardous waste, such as lead-acid batteries, TVs and computer monitors, fridges, undepolluted ELVs, or any oil containing wastes, a hazardous waste consignment note must be provided by the driver. We need to ensure that we only accept waste we're licensed to accept. For example, some fridges contain harmful CFC gases that damage the ozone layer. These gases need to be safely removed from the fridge by the SIM Specialist Fridge Treatment Facility to avoid causing harm to the environment. Let's review this section. Make sure you know what waste types can and can't be accepted at the site. Understand that waste received must be visually inspected to prevent any non-conforming waste entering the site. If any non-conforming waste is found, the load should be rejected or arrangements made for its safe storage in the quarantine area. All paperwork must be thoroughly checked. Don't forget, the same care and attention is required when loading scrap and other wastes for removal from the site. When a load is tipped at the site, a site operative, sometimes called the banksman, should be available to check the load. At this point, if any non-conforming wastes, such as gas bottles, are found that were not observed from the weighbridge, the load may be rejected. If the load isn't rejected, the banksman should arrange for the non-conforming waste to be removed to the correct storage or quarantine area. TVs and computer monitors should be offloaded in a way that doesn't damage the screen, as the glass is contaminated with hazardous lead and phosphors that can be released into the environment or washed from the site into the drainage system. It's not just the waste that SIMS receives on site that has the potential to cause environmental harm or pollution. Deliveries of drums containing oil or grease also have the potential to be tipped over. With this in mind, all drums and containers should be stored in the designated bunded area as soon as they've been delivered to site. Let's now review this section. You must ensure that all deliveries and offloading activities are supervised. Ensure that all WEEE waste is offloaded in a way that prevents damage. And finally, check that deliveries of any oil drums and containers are stored in the bunded areas immediately. The site's waste management license states how we should store wastes on site. If we fail to comply, we're in breach of our license and may be prosecuted by the Environment Agency. This is explored in the following scenes. where we demonstrate the correct and incorrect way of storing waste. Every site has a site layout plan detailing where all wastes are stored on site, and you should familiarize yourselves with this plan. Some wastes may also require additional consideration. Any loose tires should be moved to the correct tire storage location. All lead-acid batteries should be stored in designated battery boxes, which should have the lids on at all times. These storage boxes should be periodically checked to ensure that they're not damaged. TVs, computer monitors and fridges must be stored in a way that prevents damage. Some sites have additional covered areas for TVs and monitors, which should be used if available. When not in use, diesel and oil storage tanks should be locked, with the pump and pipework contained in the bund at all times. Tanks should also be checked for any leaks and drip trays not allowed to overflow. If a bund is damaged, it should be reported to a site manager. All drums and containers should be stored in their designated drip trays at all times. Any drums loose around site should be taken to the correct storage area. Let's review this section. Firstly, ensure that you're familiar with your site layout. Be proactive. Don't wait to be told. If you see something that's out of place, sort it out. It's part of your job. There are many activities that we carry out on site that have the potential to cause a leak or spillage of polluting liquid. So we need to carry out our activities in such a way that prevents such events happening. If spillages do occur, we should not ignore them. Even small leaks or spills that may seem insignificant need attention, as the longer they're left, the greater the problem becomes. Every site has an emergency contingency plan that details what should be done in the event of a spillage. You should familiarize yourself with the location of the emergency spill kit, which contains absorbent granules that should be placed on the spillage immediately to prevent it from entering the drainage system. Once the granules have soaked up the spillage, you should return to the area, sweep up the used granules and place them in the designated container. If the drum is full, you should inform the site manager to arrange for the disposal of the granules from site. Every site has an oil interceptor that's designed to retain any oil that's been accidentally spilt. However, interceptors will not work in the event of a major spillage and should be switched off to avoid such a spillage washing through the interceptor and into the external drainage system. Interceptors should therefore be accessible at all times. Access is also important to allow cleaning of the interceptors every 6 months. In order to protect our surrounding environment, we must carry out our operations carefully to minimize the risk of pollution, taking particular care to avoid leaks and spillages. A spillage will inevitably work its way into the main drainage system. However, just because it's out of sight, it should not become out of mind. Just because a spillage has entered the drain doesn't mean that it's no longer our problem. But where do the drains go? Some drains, known as foul drains, will go straight to the sewer works. We need to ensure that we're not feeding them heavily contaminated water. Other drains go directly to the surrounding watercourse, so we need to ensure that contaminated waters from our drains are not causing pollution. Many of our sites have interceptors that filter the water as it makes its journey to external drainage. However, these are only designed for small quantities and won't work if a large volume of oil enters the drain. In summary, when spillages occur, we can't rely on the interceptor to solve the problem. Remember, oil is a particularly harmful pollutant, and a relatively small amount of oil can cause a large problem. Indeed, 5 litres of oil can cover an area of water the size of 2 football pitches. Pollution of the surrounding watercourse can lead to prosecution by the Environment Agency and a hefty fine. Let's review this section. Be proactive. Always be on the lookout for any leaks or spillages. Make sure you know where all the spillage kits on site are kept. React immediately to all spillages observed on site. Remove the used granules once the leak has stopped. Ensure used granules are placed in the appropriate containers for disposal from site. Noise, dust, litter, mud, debris, odours and pests can all have an impact on the surrounding environment. If we don't carry out operations in a considerate way, the public suffer. Good housekeeping is an issue often overlooked by people, but it's actually one of the most important. As well as a nicer working environment for us all, regular cleaning of site surfaces helps to control dust, mud and litter, and helps to prevent spread into the local community. Dusts can be controlled during windy and dry conditions by the use of a dust sprinkler system. Noise is pollution and can be a real nuisance for our neighbours. With a little thought, we can reduce or even eliminate unnecessary noise. For example, when a crane operator is moving scrap or a bobcat is pushing scrap into a pile. Simple things like reducing the drop height of materials and placing rather than throwing scrap all help. In summary, we need to recognise that our actions can cause excessive noise and have a negative impact upon our colleagues, local residents and wildlife. If you think there are any issues, that any of our operations are having a detrimental effect on the environment, please let your site environmental representative know about it. Without the help of the local population helping us to recycle, we wouldn't be in business. So the onus is on us to operate in a manner that isn't detrimental to the community's quality of life.